Welcome back to the Arbitress YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful organza top. It's a basic top for basic beginners and it is very simple to make. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So making this organza blouse is actually very simple. All you need is just your organza fabric and your bias for turning the neckline, and if you'll be comfortable with using a facing, you can also cut a facing, but I'll be using a bias for this. And you don't need too much measurement. It's a free top. I'll not be adding a zipper to this, so there is not going to be any zipper allowance. I just folded my organza fabric into 4, which means I'm cutting both the front and the back together. And like I said, it's a free top, so it's not going to be too difficult to draft. So the total length that I'm working with, that's from my shoulder to where I want this blouse to stop, is 26 inches. So I'm just going to mark that 26 inches there. Okay, so now this has been made to a straight line, so this is what I'm working with. So you fold your fabric with the highest measurement that you're working with. Remember, this is a full top, and then the length is going to be stopping around the hip area. So the fullest measurement I'm working with here is 38 inches, and 38 inches is 40 inches, and 40 inches divided by 4 is going to give me 10 inches. So I'm leaving 1 inch for ease and then 1 inch for seam allowance. That's why I have 12 inches folded. So in all, this 12 inches multiplied by 4, remember we folded the fabric into 4, that's 12 times 4 is going to give us 48. So I'm using a fabric of length 26 by the width of 48 inches for this particular size. So for the neckline, because there's not going to be any zipper on this, the neckline has to be a bit wide. So for the neckline, I'm using a neckline of 4 inches by, let's say 4 inches for the front, and then 4 inches by around 1.5 or 2 inches for the back. This will still go perfectly inside the neckline of the person that I'm making this for. But if you feel this is too small for your clients, you can just do like a both neckline and then use 5 inches so that it will be wider. So but this neckline is perfect for me. Then there I'll take my shoulder measurements, and the shoulder I'm working with is 8 inches. So 8 inches is here. On the 8 inches point, I will take my shoulder slope of 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect that to my neck point, which is here. So from there now I'm good. But when you're working with an organza fabric, you have to be careful. You can hold it with a pin because it's going to keep shifting. So from there now, I'm taking my armhole measurement, which in this case, because this is going to be an armless, so if you look at the thumbnail, you will see that we have 2 variations. One has a balloon sleeve and the one is sleeveless. So we are making the sleeveless because we've done a lot of tutorial on designs with balloon sleeve on the channel. But because this is going to be a sleeveless, I don't want the armpit to be showing too much. So instead of using the 8 inches, I can just come up by 8.5, or just go with 7 inches, depending on how much you want to expose. Then I'll mark my shoulder line there. So on that shoulder line there, I'm going to be taking my bust measurement. So the bust measurement I'm working with is 9 inches. That's 36 divided by 4, that's 9 inches. And then after making 9 inches, I can mark 1 inch for ease to make it 10 inches, and then 1 inch for seam allowance, and that's going to give me a total of 11 inches. So on that point there, I'll take my armhole curve and then draw my armhole curve. So from there now, I'll place my armhole curve there and then draw it. So if you've watched my tutorial on how to draft a basic bodice, or you know how to draft a basic bodice perfectly, this should not be too difficult for you. But for the benefit of the beginners and wonders, that's why I'm just going through all this again. So now if you want this a bit fitted, you can actually take your waist measurement. So taking your waist measurement, the waist I'm working with is 15 inches. So here I'm going to be marking 15 inches, and then on that 15 inches mark, the waist I'm working with is 30 inches. So 30 divided by 4 is going to give me 7.5. So now for ease, you cannot mark your 7.5 inches directly, so you can just add maybe 1 inch or 1.5 inches. So if I'm adding 1.5 to this waist now to 7.5 inches, it's going to give me 9 inches. Then I'm going to add 1 inch for seam allowance, so that's a total of 10 inches. And then I'm going to connect that to my bust measurement. Okay, if you want it really free, you can just take what you have on your bust down like that, but this is still not going to be tight because we added ease to it. So here on the hemline, I'm going to take the hem measurement, which is 40 divided by 4, 10 inches, and then 1 inch for seam allowance, 1 inch for ease, and then 1 inch for seam allowance, which is going to make it a total of 12 inches. And then I'm going to connect that also. So this is about all you need to do. And then we're going to be cutting this out. I hope you can see what I'm doing, because I don't want to drag this chalk on it too much so that it's not going to disturb what I'm doing. So I'll first of all cut the excess fabric off before cutting my neckline. So you can see how simple it is to make this blouse. It's a very simple blouse to make. Okay, so I've cut it now. The next thing is for me to cut my shoulder slope, and then you cut your back neckline first. Remember, it's not the same, before you remove the back and cut out the front neckline. So after cutting the back neckline here, I'm going to create like a, so the way I'm seeing it, the neck may not be enough for the person to wear it. So for easy wearing on the back neckline area, I'm just going to go down by maybe 4 inches or 5 inches. So for the benefit of those that may want to do maybe a turtleneck and you don't want to put a zipper inside this, so on the back neckline here, you just go down by maybe 4 inches. Then after going downwards by 4 inches, you slash it open so that I can fix a button or something there. And then I'm going to close it again to shape out my front neckline. So after closing it now, I'm just going to cut out my front neckline. So I'm just going to go above that a bit, because now I have an opening to wear it at my back. It doesn't have to be that deep again. So this is what the front is looking like, and this is what the back is looking like. So you don't need a dart for this. Like we said, it's a free top. So now the next thing is for us to create the design that we have at the front. You can see some gathered design. So this now depends on how you want your design to be. So you measure where you want it to be. So from the upper part here, you can actually create like a V-shaped design, or you can just make it straight like that. So from my upper part here, I want the deepest. Okay, so I'm creating like a V shape, so I want it to be at maybe 10 inches or 9 inches. Okay, so here is what I'm talking about. You can make this design that you have here straight, like what we have here. You can see this is straight, or you just make it V shape like what we have here. You can see this is slanted in form of a V shape. So now this depends on how deep you want that V shape to be. So for me, I think the lowest that I want it is to be around, because this design, what this design also do for you, you know, organza is transparent. So if you have that design on top of this blouse, it may give you some form of closure, so that it will not be so transparent, like just seeing through the skin like we have it on the upper part here. And also you can cut this as a yoke, but I'm not going to be cutting it separately. I'm just going to be placing the design directly on it. So now to place this design, now you can actually put your fabric on fold, so that it will be easier for you to work with, and you just trace it out later, because this is actually an organza and it is see-through. So here now at the center front here, I want the deepest part to be around, let's say 9 inches or 8 inches. Okay, so if I measure 8 inches at my center front, this is 8 inches, and then it's going to be connected to my armhole. So I'll measure around my armhole now, and then divide what I have by 2. So I have 10 inches there. Dividing this by 2 is going to give me around 5 inches, which is fine for me. You can place it anywhere, so I'm just going to place it maybe around this 5 inches also. And then from there I'll take my slightly curved ruler, and then I'll connect it to these 8 inches that I have there. So I'm connecting this, and then this design is just going to follow this shape that I have. So this organza is shifting. I just have to hold this like this. So what I have here now, I'm just going to fold my organza to the other side and repeat it. Remember I said this is actually like a see-through fabric, so it is easier for you to see what you have marked on the other side, and you just repeat it there like that, so that you have something perfect on both sides. So once you have that and you open it out, this is what the design is looking like. So I'm just going to make it bolder so that we will see. So it's just going to follow this shape like this. So now the next thing now is to cut out a straight fabric to form this design. And to do this, I'm just going to measure what I have here, and this is around 15 inches. So depending on how full you want it to be, you can multiply this by 2 or by 3. So multiplying this by 3 is going to give me around 45 inches, and then I want this design to be just at the front. So my excess fabric that I have left now, I'm just going to cut out a fabric of length 7 inches, 7 or 8 inches, depending on how long you want this ruffle to be. So you can see the ruffle that we have here, so you can make it around 7 or 8 inches. So for me, I'm making this 8 inches, including the allowances. So I'll just put this fabric together now and measure out 8 inches by 45 inches. Okay, so now I've cut out this long strip. So I cut out 45 inches by 9 inches, because for this part now I want the upper part to be showing. So here you can just weave this edge that is going to be showing on the upper part of the ruffle. What I mean by this is this: instead of me to fix it in a way that is going to be covering the rough edges, so I'll not be having any rough edges, I'm just going to be turning this in. But you can also weave it. So after turning it in, I'm going to be placing it on it in a way that this edges is going to be showing. So you can either weave it or just turn it like I am doing. So I'll go over to the sewing machine now and turn this in and sew it. So after sewing it, I will sew it or weave this on this other edge also. Then I'll place it on my design. You can see this V shape that I have, and then I'm going to be gathering it on top of it, everything to fit this V shape. Okay, so now I've turned it. You can see the edges now that has been turned, and like I said, you can just use a weaving machine to weave it so that it will be finer. So now I've sewn a gather stitches. I've done this gather stitch on one end of the strip. So I'll just pick it now and gather it to this size that I have in front, this V-shape size. So I'm just going to pick it now and then gather. So you can see how I'm gathering this. You just have to be careful so that you don't cut your thread. Okay, so now this have been gathered to this side. So the next thing now is just for me to place it on it like this, and then I'm going to sew on it. So this is what I was saying. I just want this gathered ruffle effect to be showing on top. So you can actually place it like this, so it then use this to cover it up, but I'm just going to be placing it directly now and sewing it. So after sewing it to it, now the next thing now is for me to use my bias to turn this slant opening that I did at the back. So I'll use it to turn it. After turning it, I'll sew the front and back on the shoulder, and then use it to turn the lining also. Then I'll join it on the side and then turn the armhole also with a bias. This video is already long, so I don't want this to be too long any longer. So I'll do all this now and then bring it back to show us. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone ahead to attach this ruffle to you, and this is what we have. So I also joined it on the shoulder. Then on the back part, I use the bias to turn the opening that I have. So here, if you want to be putting maybe a button on this, you just need to use your bias to create like a button hole here, and then fix your button on the other hand. But for me, I just want it to have like a rope at the back. So the bias that I'm going to use to turn it at the back here, I'll make it longer so that it will have excess. Then I'll be able to tie it at the hemline, but I just want to show us how I'm going to be finishing this armhole. So you can see this ruffle that I have here. So here I'm just going to extend it normally the way it's supposed to be, and then I'll pin it. So by the time I put the front and back together like this, and then I sew it on the side, this excess ruffle, as you can see that I have, I'm just going to follow this my armhole measurement, and then I'll trim it off. So the same thing I'll do to the other side before I now use my bias to turn the armhole also. Okay, so you can see that I've gone ahead to join it on the shoulder, and then I've hemmed the armhole area with a bias also. And like I said, for the back part, I'm not going to be fixing the button, so I made my bias longer so that I can, by the time I wear it, I can just tie a knot there and form like a bow that will just hang downwards like this, or whatever it is that I want. So I'll take this to the mannequin now so that I'll see what it looks like. Okay, you can see the organza top that we have here. So this design is the v-neck that we have. So like I was explaining, you can just make it straight like this, or you make it inverted depending on what you want. And I used 8 inches in haul. I used 11 inches, then I used half to turn it up and down, which left 8 inches for me. You can make it longer or shorter. And I just pipe the neckline, and this is what the back is looking like. Like I said, I want a rope. So I want the rope to tie it at the back, so you can see the effect that this rope is just giving the back part of the skirt. So I just paired this skirt with a Caribbean skirt that I already have at home. So it's a high waist skirt, and you can see how lovely this has turned out. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.